now we move into the world of airbrushing. Now I do recommend you go to Genesis Mold's website. Under the tutorial section you will see all sorts of airbrushing basics. There's a nice 3 episode long basics on airbrushing. We have all other sorts of different airbrushing ones in there. Go watch them because it will get you up to speed, get those sort of basics, rather than me spending a long time, because it's a big subject, airbrushing. But we'll get started now. I'm at about 20 psi. Right, I am using the Harder and Sternbeck just here. Really recommended airbrush if you want to go get one. I know they're a bit expensive, but you know, these things last for life. I'm going to be using Tamiya's XF71, their cockpit green. I haven't researched the colours yet, but Tamiya's normally good for things like World War II Japanese aircraft, so good one there. Using their X28 thinners as well. I'm going to start off by pouring the thinners in first, right? Because I personally like to mix in my colour cup. I know some people do like to mix outside the colour cup, right? And we want about, you know, a 50-50 mix-ish to start with, but we always sort of check. Oh, that's a bit tight. We always sort of check our spray pattern. I've done a video on that, how to mix paints. Good one to go watch as well. So we get pour about a 50-50 mix in here. Right, good to use a nice old paintbrush, and we sort of stir this all up. Now I've mixed in the thinners first, right, because as much as I'm mixing in this colour cup just here, right, there is excuse me, there is a bit of a reservoir just down in here, and the first thing you want coming out is going to be thinners over paint, because you don't want thick paint trying to go through your airbrush and it gets all clogged up. So we're just going to now spray this through, right, and we're going to just see how's it flowing, sort of check, see if we've got a nice spray pattern, a nice feathered spray pattern. We know we're under sort of 20 psi, so we know we're not going to get like rough surfaces. Yeah, and one thing I'll say time and time again, right, master your biting point, and you're pretty much, you know, skill wise almost all there when it comes to airbrushing. What I mean by the biting point is we press down the trigger, we get air, we slowly pull back, and we get paint, right? If we pull back a lot, we get more paint and more paint. But if we just pull that trigger back slowly to that point where the paint just starts coming out, that's your biting point. That's that point where the paint just starts, right? And if you can just hold that biting point, you can get some nice control, right? And you can pull back and get as much paint as you want. Just play around with that biting point. But really, we are just doing some nice, easy sort of base spraying just here. So we're just going to start off with a light misty coat, right? When it comes to pretty much any sort of spraying, right, I like to just get that first light misty coat down where you hardly see the paint going down, right? It shouldn't look wet at all because we are going really nice and misty. So hopefully you can sort of see that, you know, you can hardly see that much going down. That just starts that adhesive process of the paint sticking to the plastic, and just allows all your other coats that comes after that to stick even better. Right, so I'm just cutting to air now, which should dry this up pretty quick because it is, you know, just a light misty coat. Then we can do light coats. All right, now when it comes to a light coat, let's move that out of the way. When it comes to a light coat, this is where we sort of spray it down, and when we start seeing it being wet, we just move along, right? We don't mess about. As you can see, it looks a little bit wet, right? But we've moved along. If we carry on spraying while it's wet, it's going to build up, and the paint's going to get thick. You could have runs. When paint gets thick, it takes longer to dry. You could have things like cracking. Right, you know, just keep it nice and light. Just keep it so that it is just, you start spraying it down, right, and as soon as it starts looking wet, move along, right. Try and keep it as controlled as possible using that biting point, because we've got all these different angles and all these different bits, right? We've got to come in from all the different angles, right? So we don't want to be putting so much paint down, because we've got to come in from all the different angles, right? And you can quite easily start to build up too much paint. So there's like one nice coat, and actually the coverage is quite good, so probably a second coat and that'll be fine. So kind of leave that to dry. These paints do dry pretty quickly. I mean, you're probably talking 15-30 minutes and you're good to put on a second coat. Going through all those pieces, right? Also, I do keep just over here a big piece of polystyrene, as you can see there. Really good just to stab in your pieces, and it just keeps them so as you don't lie them on the side, you know, it just keeps them all nicely to dry. I'm probably going to come along with some sort of, I'll probably use black actually for our MGs just here, and we'll do a nice bit of way to make them look all gunmetal-y, and that is some nice basic spraying. But again, you know, check out Genesis Models website. There's loads of tutorials where you go into great more depth, troubleshooting problems, and all these good stuff, buying guides and compressors and how to set them up and all that good stuff. So go check out them, and I will move on with the next bit. Just got to point out that you know, whenever I do these videos, I know I'm not wearing a face mask or extractor fans on or anything like that. That's just for me to be able to talk to you. But you know, when the cameras go off, right, I've got a nice M3 face mask just here, really good. The filters can easily be changed, and but have new ones on. Really good face mask to get hold of. Got my extractor fan just over here in my little spray booth area. I've even got them in the ceiling. You know, if you haven't got that kind of stuff, I mean, you know, some sort of face mask I recommend, sort of no matter what. Open windows, maybe spray outside or something along those lines. But you got to be careful, especially when you start using things like enamels and lacquer based paints. So just moving along, there is one piece I did want to sort of show you. You might get missed out on this, as so you build the cockpit area following the instructions, but there's just this just here. This is potentially going to be visible, so just so as you don't have to get your airbrush out and everything all over again, right, just make sure you spray this little bit just here, because this is going to be just slightly visible. Right, and you can weather that up as well, because it's going to probably catch you out. It almost catched me out as well. Also, we're going to sort of clean out our airbrush now. Now, I do have a lot more paint in there than I intended, but you know, I just normally sort of well, actually, to be fair, I did use X20A thinners. Pouring paint back into your paint pots, I don't mind doing it if I've used the manufacturer's actual thinners. Now, I've done a video. It's the homebrew video. Again, you know, might want to go check that out. The homebrew video is how to make your own using IPA and water. Really good stuff. I wouldn't pour it in if I used a non-manufacturer's thinners. So just to point that out, I personally think it's okay if you use their thinners. So cleaning out your colour cup, right, first off, I mean, again, I've just mentioned homebrew thinners. You know, this is a good one, because I mean, it's so cheap, right, and we can just sort of have our first little blast, right, and what I do is I pinch the end of the needle, push push the trigger down to get air, and then I slowly pull back, and it just gurgles it up a bit, sort of works that in there, you know, gets the internal sort of cleaning itself through the airbrush, right, and then I put my cotton water, put my kitchen paper towel in, tip it upside down, and we clean it this way, right? We don't sort of blast it through straight away, right? Because if there's any sort of cruddy bits, right, we don't want to be trying to blast them through a 0.4 mil needle. After that first go, actually, I do like to sort of get out our Airbrush Cleaner by Vallejo. I've kind of switched back to these guys because, you know, they are really good actually when it comes to airbrush cleaning. So I'm just going to pour this in here, same routine, right? The second blast, right? And again, we'll gurgle up, and as you can see, you know, already looking kind of green. You'll notice it's more bubbly because it's kind of got like a bit of a oilness to it to sort of, you know, keep all your moving parts moving nicely. Right, and again, we'll tip this upside down. Right, and then we can start blasting it through the airbrush. Right, and because we're just blasting through the airbrush, homebrew thinners, nice, cheap. Right, and I'll just keep blasting that through until we're just getting nice, clear thinners. And that's how you want to be cleaning out your airbrush, because if you haven't already checked out those basic airbrushing tutorials and stuff, there is one. Did I do it? Oh no, it was in the Avenger build, I think around about episode 9, where we talk about cleaning out your airbrush and the fundamental parts. You know, basically it's cleaning that nozzle, cleaning that needle, right? 9 times out of 10, any sort of problems you have with airbrushing is going to be down to your airbrush not being cleaned or not knowing how to clean it properly. So good to go check out those videos. So what's up next? Just going to jump straight into it actually. Weathering, right? I'm going to, again, I want to keep this fun, keep it quick, keep it basic, right? Not kind of overwhelm you with too much advanced stuff. So what we have here is our base coat nicely down just here. I'll give it time to dry. Now I'm going to come in, so this is really going to be nice and quick. We have Citadel. Citadel does some really nice, what they call shades, which are basically washes, and they're just really nice, quick and easy. How do you pronounce that? Camo shade, Athenian camo shade. They come up with all these weird names, but basically it's a nice sort of dark green wash, which is going to complement our interior green rather nicely. So we can just basically dip in neat and just basically just slap this on, right? There is a little bit of a, once you've slapped this on, we kind of tied it up a little bit. Not like I would normally do in, say, an intermediate or advanced video, right? Because I want to keep this easy. What I mean by a bit of a cleanup, once you've kind of whacked that down, I kind of sort of get my kitchen paper towel, sort of make my brush damp, and, you know, maybe we've got a bit too much of a pool up, right? Maybe it's a bit too thick in areas. Right, just sort of clean it up a little bit, sort of suck up any big bits. But there you go, that will now sort of nicely weather that up. Oh, we could do again a little bit more on these instrument display panels, I think, because we want to bring them out. Right, just a lot like what I've just done on this one. It kind of brings out those details and stuff. Again, it's not going to win any competitions, right, but it's gonna make it look half decent. And when we put a pilot and seal up the cockpit, we're not going to be able to see massively in there for you guys who just want a bit of fun. But this is a nice technique for a nice quick way of doing a cockpit. Now luckily, you know, pick the right model here. This this cockpit, we don't have to do loads of painting. I know there's potentially a bunch of details we could go in there and paint this and this black or whatever, but mostly it is generally interior green in these Japanese Zeros. So you know, as much as some of you might kind of want to do those little bit details, go ahead, but I'm just going to blast through it and, you know, leave out those details and make it nice and quick. Now when this dries, you should end up with something like this, which, as you can see, you know, this detail has now nicely been brought out by the wash. And not only that, you know, it's also changed the colour like a little bit. It's made it a little bit darker, changed the shade of it. So what we can actually do is we can come back with our original colour, XF71. And what we're going to do here is a little bit of dry brushing, right, because it just neatens it up and it also highlights it, brings back the original colour a bit. Nice and easy with dry brushing. Dry brushing is one of these things, it is basic, but you know, if you do it right, it can actually be quite nice. Now doing it right is a case of, you know, getting your brush loaded up with the right amount of paint. If you've got too much paint on your brush, you know, you're going to see those brush strokes. But if you've got it nice and light and you do lots and lots of passes, you can get it nice and feathered. So what you don't want to be doing is, when we sort of brush onto this now, we don't want to be going off. Let's maybe move that out of the way, might be a bit better on the camera. We don't want to be going off and sort of, you know, doing about 2 or 3 passes and we're done, because it's not going to be as feathered. You know, if what's on our paintbrush is nice and light and we've got it just right, if we actually do, as you can see here, I'm doing lots and lots of passes. I mean, if we did about 20 passes, that's fine. If 50 passes, it doesn't matter. You know, the more passes you do, it just gives it a bit more of a feathering in, right? So as you can see, this dial here is sort of been more feathered in. This one's sort of, you know, still dark, right? I mean, you might have to load your paintbrush again after a bit. But what you'll start to see is, you know, raised areas will become sort of lighter, right? And even, you know, on those flatter areas where, say, the wash has, I mean, you might be able to see even on the flatter areas, you know, the wash on this here, you know, you could see it on the flatter areas. But the dry brushing, you know, by doing lots and lots of passes, right, even the flat areas can just sort of get paint over the wash a bit and sort of knock back, you know, the dirty bits that are on the flat pieces. So we kind of end up with, you know, it just being mainly in, you know, leaving the wash in all the recessed areas and all the detailed areas, so it just brings that out. And that's the wash, right? So I'll do the, so that's the, our, forgot what it was called, dry brushing. That was our dry brushing, right? And we I'll do the rest off camera, but what we can go off and do, getting out a nice paintbrush. This is a Zero paintbrush, Winsor & Newton, really nice brand. Getting out some black, right? And what we're going to do is a little bit of detail work. Again, this needs to, I want this to be quick and fun, so, you know, I'm just loading my paintbrush up with a nice bit of paint, right? And I'm not going to use the point, I'm going to use the side, right? Really nice and quick, where we can just run the side of the paintbrush across the detail work. And by doing that, right, we'll just, should hopefully just bring out all our buttons, right? And there we go. Right, now we do have like a little sort of dial just here, a little bit of a circle. For something like that, what we can do is we can, you know, really sort of try and water down our paint, right, to give it a nice bit of flow. Yeah, so hopefully we won't have to put any retarder, or, well, sorry, not retarder, but like flow improver. But basically what we should be able to do, right, is just touch the middle of that, right? And hopefully, as you can see there, it's just flowing around, right? It touches the raised sides, so then it basically just paints that nice dial in perfectly circular for you. And there you go. So little bits of detail like that. Remember, this is a good choice of a kit. A lot of it is green inside, so you know, maybe a bit of red or something, but you know, that is basically it for that side of things. All the weathering, really quick, really easy, really nice and fun. Now we're going to move on to a little bit of photo etch. I know that's kind of maybe going into intermediate sort of thing, but the thing is, this kit comes with the photo etch, so we may as well take advantage of it. Now when it comes to the photo etch, I'll show you how to put it on in a sec, but what we're going to do is, you know, we want this to be quick and fun, right? And a nice relaxing build. So what you can see on here is an absolute ton of photo etch, right? And a lot of it is lots and lots of little bits, right? We could spend hours and hours just trying to put all this photo etch on, and you know, it can really sort of suck the life out of building the model. Yeah, it might look amazing at the end of it, but we're not after that. So what we're going to do here is just pick big, impactful pieces of photo etch, and let's just forget all those little bits, you know. Let's keep this fun. So what we're going to do now is just show you putting on photo etch. So what we're going to be picking here is really, you know, the main one is the instrument display panel. Right, they're nice, big, easy pieces. We'll just start off with this, and I might just actually be just putting that on, in all honesty, right, because everything else, you know, we've not sanded away the detail to replace it with Photo Etch. This is probably all we're going to put on. Now, there is a good tool here. I think it was by RP Productions or something, right, and this is good for cutting up your Photo Etch and getting it nicely off the fret. But again, this is a basic build. I don't want you going off spending loads of money. So you know what, we've got some actual plastic card here. You want some sort of hard surface. You could use tiles, right, just something so that when you cut into it, the Photo Etch doesn't have any way of bending, right. The one tool you are going to need, or you know, should try and get your hands on, really, we use blades, but a number 9 blade, right, a number 9 blade is a nice flat blade, right, because we don't want to be dragging or anything like that. So I've got another piece of plastic card here, right, it's a bit bulky and stuff, so you know, you get my picture. You kind of use this to flatten it down, but I'm just gonna use this just so it's more easy for me to show you on camera. Right, but what we basically do is we get our Photo Etch just here, right, we sandwich it with another piece of plastic card, right, and we just try and line it up real nice, right, so as we're there nicely to cut it off the fret, right. And then what I'm going to do, my number 9 blade, is I'm now going to rock it like so and apply pressure. Right, and that should cut that little fret, little piece slowly off the fret as we like cut all these off. Right, now you don't want to be, ooh, move that out the way, you don't want to be going off and dragging, right, you don't want to be going off and dragging, right, because that could potentially move the Photo Etch, bend it and all sorts. By just nicely cutting it down like so, we can keep it all nice and safe. So I'm just going to do these final 2 cuts, and this should come up quite nicely. There we go, and there we have it, nicely off of the fret. And basically those 2 hard pieces of plastic card, sandwiching it together so as we don't bend it as we cut it off, and it's the nice way to do it. And you should be pretty good all the way around just that. You can go off, and I do like to I like to select a nice set of tweezers or something that you could sandwich it nicely. I mean, these ones will probably do, right. If you ever want to sort of tidy it up a little bit, right, maybe you've got a bit of the fret still on the piece, right, if we sort of, again, we're sandwiching, right, sandwiching it together so as we don't bend the Photo Etch, right, because that can really sort of play havoc, right. So I've got that sandwiched, and there's just a little bit, I can just feel that little bit of fret still on there. And then what we can go off and do is get some sort of a sanding stick, right, sorry, a sanding foil. You can get cheap ones. I know Tamiya does a really nice Photo Etch sanding foil, which I'm using now, but you can use a cheaper one. These are better, but they are a bit expensive, right. And we can just sand that, and that now, ooh, maybe a little bit more, just gets that nicely tidied up. So we've sanded away all the bits of fret, we've got it nicely off of the fret, all sort of nice and straight and not bending, right. And then we'll get the other pieces off and move along with gluing it onto the model.